In this video, we're going to be taking a look at some of the discrepancies between the transcripts from Luke Mitchell's trial and claims made in the book Innocence Betrayed by Dr. Marylin. The book has been a source of information for campaigners and concerned members of the public who believe that Luke may have been the victim of a miscarriage of justice since its publication in 2018. The release of the transcripts from Luke's trial, which ran from November 2004 until January 2005, has provided a source for comparison against claims made in the book. This video will look in detail at some of these claims. This video isn't to attempt to convince anyone of guilt or innocence, just to highlight trial facts and to compare. I'm going to read out the page number and the claim from the book Innocence Betrayed, followed by information from the transcripts, and page numbers will be included. Links to the transcripts will be in the comments below so you can have a look for yourself. The first claim we're going to look at is that there was no evidence of Luke seeing another girl, and that's on page 169 of Innocence Betrayed. The claim that he was planning to visit her again in July 2003 was based on Corinne's plan to holiday in the same place, a plan that had since been cancelled. Jodi and Luke were, in fact, planning a sleepover at a friend's house the following weekend as part of a birthday celebration. The very weekend the prosecution alleged Luke would be going to see Kimberly Thompson. None of the available evidence supported the claim that Luke was seeing another girl. Corinne Mitchell gave evidence on the 13th of January 2005. Pages 2263 and 2264 of her transcripts discuss Kimberly Thompson and Luke's visit. She's asked, "Right, he was supposed to be visiting Kimberly in the course of summer 2003. She replies, "Yes, he was supposed to be going up there." "Was he supposed to be staying?" "He was supposed to be staying at Kimberly's, yes." "For how long?" "I wasn't sure, probably about a week." Page 2264 says, "Do you see in the middle of that page that it records you having told the police that Luke had been intending to go to Kimberly's this weekend, 5th of July? Do you see that?" "Yes." It was also agreed that Luke had spent Saturday night on the phone to Kimberly. So contrary to the claim in Innocence Betrayed that there was no evidence of Luke seeing another girl, or any intention to stay with Kimberly, we can see from Corinne that there was an intention for him to stay with Kimberly 5 days after the murder, and evidence that he had spoken to her on the phone on the Saturday night, which was 2 days before the murder. This doesn't mean that this was a motive, but it's different to what was said in Innocence Betrayed. The porn on the computer. Page 318 of Innocence Betrayed. It's plain to see Shane admitted no such thing. Shane originally told investigators he was looking at car sites. The computer records demonstrated that the links to pornographic sites each connected for a few seconds, indicating that they were almost certainly pop-ups. Shane's transcript, 12th of January 2005, page 2042. Okay, so should we understand that you were browsing through pictures that were available accessing the Hun site, that's a porn directory? He agrees, yes. And does that mean, Mr. Mitchell, that you were watching pornography on your computer that day? He replies, yes. And that's just after returning home from work? Yes. Page 2060. Right, and as you've got to the stage where you wanted to look at the car-related site? He replies, yes. Were the porn sites still open? No, they were closed down. Page 2061. Shane. Well, normally I don't look at porn and look at car sites at the same time, I look at them one at a time. So while this doesn't necessarily indicate any kind of knowledge of the crime, it is different again to what was said in Innocence Betrayed. The knife being handed in to police. Page 224. She later remembered where it was and handed it to Luke's solicitor. The solicitor's statement confirming the handing over of the knife to police was in the defence papers. This next claim that I'm going to read out doesn't actually come from Innocence Betrayed, it comes from a podcast, specifically the Jibber Jabber podcast from the 28th of February 2021. Marylin stated that Corinne remembered where the knife was the next day and handed it to the solicitor who handed it to police. Corinne's transcript from the 13th of January 2005. Look with me please at defence label number, and the number isn't actually legible, is that the knife? Corinne replies, it looks like it, yeah. Yes, well you'll understand that it appeared just on the eve of the trial, ? Corinne responds, well Nigel must have given it to you then. Just to be clear, the eve of the trial was 7 months after the search. The search was on the 14th of April 2004, so the knife was handed in 7 months later on the eve of the trial. It is possible that it was handed to the solicitor that same day, but at no point does the book or Dr. Sandrine make clear in the podcast that it was actually handed to the police 7 months later. And other than her word for it, there is no evidence that it was handed to the solicitor the same day. It may very well have been, but the transcripts state that it was 7 months later that the police received it. Did Shane see Luke? Page 304 of Innocence Betrayed. He did recall, once prompted, the burnt pies, although he was dependent on his mother and brother for confirmation of the day in question. The response to this addition to his account was catastrophic for Luke. By the time the case came to court, it was used to claim that Shane and Corrine had conspired to create a cover story for Luke. 308. The way the prosecuting QC went about this line of questioning backed Shane down blind alley after blind alley with questions designed to elicit strict yes or no answers until he got what he wanted. An apparent agreement that during the whole period and right up to the trial, Shane had never remembered whether Luke was at home or not. That was never the case, but the information was so successfully manipulated that it appeared to be so. Page 318. He told the court that he did see Luke when he, Shane, came down for tea. But the police would not believe him because he had not said so in his first statement. Shane's transcripts from the 12th of January 2005, page 2144. Well, just think about it, and bear in mind the discussion we've just been through. Shane says, "I genuinely do not remember seeing my brother." Page 2005, from the 13th of January. Talking about the mashed tatties and burnt pies statement, quoting Shane's July 7th amended statement with DC Michelle Lindsay. Luke was still at the cooker mashing tatties. I could smell burnt steak pies. It was a tinge in the smell. I said all right to Luke. I didn't mention the burning smell as I didn't want to insult him. He was pretty happy. Shane responds to this statement being read back to him. When I was giving this statement to Michelle Lindsay, I couldn't remember. I was still shaken up, and she was prompting me. She says, "Right, Shane, you had tatties for dinner. How did the tatties get there? Picture it in your mind's eye. Did you see your brother?" And then she wrote down Luke was making the tatties. Referring to the statement, Shane is asked, "It's not right, is it?" He replies, "No." Page 2238. And is it at the end of the day your position, is it, correct me if I'm wrong, you can't remember if Luke was in the house or not? He replies, "Yes." What's also interesting is that during the evidence of Sergeant Thompson, part of Luke's August 14th interview is read out, and he is asked if he saw Shane in the house. And he replies with, "No, he wasn't home." In fact, referring to the time that he left the house to go and wait for Jodi, which was apparently around about 5:30, Luke says, "Shane wasn't in the house when I left, no." None of this is mentioned in Innocence Betrayed. In fact, it does claim that Shane saw Luke in the house, but actually Shane said he couldn't remember seeing his brother at all, and the statement that he gave to Michelle Lindsay where he said he did wasn't correct. The Parka and the German army shirt. Page 222. These were recorded, transcribed interrogations. Where did the dozens of witnesses who saw Luke in a German army shirt go? Their statements were never released to the defence and they were never called to give evidence. It may have been that they never existed in the first place, since their statements were not in the defence papers, and those officers on 14th of August, whose behaviour was later described by appeal court judges as outrageous and to be deplored, were prepared to use anything, even outright lies, to try to force a confession out of a 15-year-old boy. Page 127 of Innocence Betrayed. Just before 6 o'clock, Luke was identified by people who knew him sitting on a wall at the end of his street, 400 to 500 metres further along the New Battle Road, wearing completely different clothing. Baggy jeans, green bomber jacket with orange lining and distinctive light coloured snowboarding boots. Page 207. By August 14th, police appeared to be convinced that Luke had disposed of a German army shirt, which they said several witnesses had described seeing him wearing the evening of the murder. That particular line of reasoning was dropped when it was pointed out that the missing shirt was actually in police possession. A more credible explanation based on all of the available evidence is that there was no parka, German army shirt or fishing clothing belonging to Luke on June 30th, and that he was wearing the bomber jacket the whole day and evening up to the point that Jodi's body was found. So looking specifically at the German army shirt, there actually was a witness who gave evidence at the trial who described Luke wearing a green shirt that possibly had a German army badge. I'm not sure why the claim was made that none of these witnesses gave evidence, because they did. Andrew Holborn was one of 3 boys on bikes who saw Luke waiting at the end of his street at New Battle Abbey Crescent on Monday 30th of June. Andrew Holborn described Luke wearing a long green shirt. He said it was definitely a shirt, not a jacket. We'll have a look at that. There were 2 other boys on bikes with him, but their evidence hasn't been transcribed yet because the tapes need to be converted to digital in order for that to happen. So once that happens, we'll hopefully get a copy of that as well, just to confirm what those boys described. This witness provided their evidence on the 2nd of December 2004. His first statement to police is read out. He described Luke wearing dark blue baggy jeans and a dark green shirt. It was definitely a shirt, not a jacket. I think it was buttoned up and I couldn't see anything underneath it. It was down to the waist of his jeans and baggy. Page 590 of his transcript. The witness has read back a statement which is believed to be his very first statement from 9th of July 2003. Just as a side note, the 9th of July is around the time that Luke was claimed to have bought the green parka that he was later photographed wearing in the press. So at the time Andrew Holborn made this statement, there wasn't any pictures of Luke wearing a green shirt or green jacket in the press. He said Luke was wearing dark blue baggy jeans and a dark green shirt, and again it was definitely a shirt, not a jacket. What's also not mentioned is that there were around 7 witnesses who believed they'd saw Luke wearing a parka before the murder. Some of these witnesses did give evidence in relation to other aspects of the case, but their statements were read out to the trial. So the jury were made aware that people believed they had saw Luke wearing a parka jacket before the murder. Again, none of that is mentioned in Innocence Betrayed. Doc identification, but his head is completely different. Page 130 of Innocence Betrayed. Lorraine Fleming's doc identification was particularly outrageous. Asked by the prosecution QC if she could identify in the court the person she saw that day, she said, "Not sure." Encouraged by the same QC to say if she could recognise someone in court who resembled him, perhaps from a different angle or perspective, she replied, "Yes, but his head is completely different." Unbelievably, that was accepted as a positive identification. So what's actually happened here is it wasn't Lorraine Fleming that was asked that in court and that made those comments. It was actually her sister-in-law, Rosemary Walsh. So there's definitely a mix-up there. Not suggesting it was intentional, these things happen, but that particular evidence relates to Rosemary Walsh and not Lorraine Fleming. Lorraine Fleming was asked, "Do you recognise the person you saw again?" She said yes. "Where is he?" And she points. This is incomprehensible. The transcript hasn't been able to pick up what she said. But she's asked, "Do you mean between the 2 gentlemen in the white shirts?" That's obviously where Luke Mitchell was positioned in court, and she says yes. So she did identify him, and this is completely omitted from Innocence Betrayed. At no point does it mention that one of those witnesses did identify him, and the wrong information is attached to the wrong witness. Jodi's gran said she just did when asked how she knew to go to the path. Innocence Betrayed, pages 145/146. Is it possible that Judith told the trio that Luke would be on the path? Technically yes, but none of them gave that as the reason they headed straight to the path. Even when they were asked directly in court, Alice Walker, for example, said, "We just did." Alice Walker provided her evidence on the 13th of December 2004. The cross-examination by Donald Finlay begins on page 1132. At no point in the entire transcript, or during cross-examination, does Alice Walker respond with, "We just did." She doesn't say it, at any point. In fact, she does provide different reasons for going to the path, such as she knew Jodi used that path, but she didn't say, "We just did." The deleted call register and the 27 minutes past midnight text. Innocence Betrayed, page 159. A civilian employee of Lothian and Borders Police analysed the mobile phone's call records during the investigation. He said that only one number, Corinne's, was stored in the phone's recently made calls list. Asked by the prosecuting QC why no more calls were listed, Mr. Morris said, "Basically because the call register had been deleted," adding that in all probability, the register had been deleted just after midnight in the early hours of July 1st, 2003, when the phone was already in possession of the police. Page 160. But not only was the call log deleted after the police took Luke's phone, a text was also sent while the phone was in the hands of police investigators, who were prepared to lie about Luke checking his voicemail immediately after Jodi's body was found. So it can no longer be accepted at face value that it was Luke himself who deleted those earlier texts. If police officers were interfering with phone evidence so early in the investigation, there can be little confidence in the reliability of any claims later made on the basis of that evidence. Innocence Betrayed, page 227. Right, not only do you phone your voicemail at 27 minutes past midnight, again, your girlfriend is lying dead, after you had found her, you send a text. Luke replies, no. DC1, no, ? At 27 minutes past midnight, you sent someone a text. Luke continued to deny having sent any text message at this time. He was told it was a joke text, and still he denied it. He was absolutely correct. By 27 minutes past 12, according to all statements, the phone was in the possession of the police. Now the transcripts do say something quite different here. DC Alan Towers provided his evidence on the 17th of December 2004. On page 6 of his transcript, the police witness explains that when Luke was in the back of the police Land Rover, he was speaking on his mobile phone. His colleague asked who Luke was speaking to and he explained it was his mum. If we look through the details provided in his transcript, there were 2 calls to Luke's mum from his mobile. In a second call, an officer explained to Luke's mum that Luke would be taken to the station. The first call to Luke's mum's mobile while he was in the police Land Rover was at 31 minutes past midnight, just after 12:30. The call lasted about 2.5 minutes. The second call at almost 20 to 1 was also to his mum, with a duration of 50 seconds. Luke's phone had clearly not yet been taken from him at the 31 minutes past midnight call if he was in the Land Rover calling his mum for the first time. It appears that they had taken his phone after the first call, seeing as they gave it back to him for the second call to his mum. The 27 minutes past midnight text was clearly before the first call to his mum, and before the police had taken his phone. This means that the text couldn't have been sent while the phone was in the hands of police investigators. There is more to this though. One of Luke's statements is read out during the evidence of DC Towers on the 17th of December. He said, "I'm sure I erased my previous calls because in case I accidentally made an outgoing call from my phone." DC Towers is asked, "So Luke had a mobile phone with you, as you told me earlier when we spoke about this on Friday, and he agreed to hand that over?" He replies, "He did, sir, yes." "Right, but he gave you an explanation in doing that as to what you might find?" He replies, "Yes." Because he explained that the phone would have dates and times of calls, but only after a certain point in the evening, probably about 25 to 11, but the reason for that was that he'd erased his previous calls. DC Towers replies, "Yes." And the reason for doing that was to avoid the possibility of making an accidental outgoing call. Yes. So what's interesting about this is that Luke's legal team would have had access to these transcripts, and Dr. Lean has claimed that she has access to these transcripts. If she does, she would have been aware of those statements from Luke. In fact, she may even have the original statements, who knows. So why would she claim that the police were the ones who deleted the call register when Luke has gone into detail to explain why he did that? The Marylin Manson DVD. Innocence Betrayed, page 230. The week after Jodi's murder, Luke picked up a music magazine in a local supermarket. Inside was a bonus promotional Marylin Manson DVD, not the full version. During Corinne Mitchell's second day of testimony, she agrees that Luke bought the DVD. He bought this 2 days after the murder. There is no evidence that at that time any of the popular music magazines such as Kerrang or NME came with that DVD. We have looked into that, we've looked at the publications at the time and in the surrounding months, and there was no Marylin Manson DVD that came with a magazine at that point. All of the information in the transcripts and that I can find online points to that actually being purchased and not free with a magazine. It does state in a press article that Luke spoke to DC Quinn about purchasing the DVD. His evidence is not available at the moment. It is actually being converted for transcription, so we will hopefully get that at some point. The log burner. Page 217. Luke was asked during the interrogation on July 14th if the log burner was used on the night of June 30th. He said he thought his mother and brother had a fire that night. During the August 14th interrogation, Luke was accused of lying. Police claiming that he said Corinne and Shane did use the burner, but they were saying they did not. During a heated exchange, Luke pointed out that he had been out that evening, so he could not have said for sure whether or not the burner was in use. The interrogating officers continued to insist Luke had told them definitely that his mother and brother had a fire. Sergeant Thompson's transcript, page 1716. Luke states that his mum and brother did have a fire. This is from the August 14th interrogation. This is just one section from the interview, and he may have later argued that he couldn't say for sure as he was out, but he did say during this interview that his mum and brother had a fire. It's interesting because Sandra has stated in her book that it was during the 14th of August interrogation that Luke denied having a fire, but according to Sergeant Thompson's testimony, that was the interview where he stated that his mum and brother did. It is possible that in that same interview he went on to say that he couldn't have known, but it wasn't the 4th of July interview, unless he had also said that at that point, and he said it in 2 interviews. Otherwise, I'm not sure what's happened there, but it was said on the 14th of August. Page 1716 of Sergeant Thompson's transcripts discuss Luke's answer to the question in regards to whether the fire was lit on Monday, June 30th. Sergeant Thompson is asked, and what was his answer to that? He says, yes, I can verify that. My mother and my brother had a fire. DC Michelle Lindsay asked Luke to draw a sketch. Innocence Betrayed, page 257. What was Michelle Lindsay's specific role? At what point did those officers tell Corinne or Luke that Michelle Lindsay was part of the investigating team sent into their home to collect any evidence she could against them, and that anything Michelle Lindsay took from them, including sketches she asked Luke to draw, may be used in evidence against Luke? DC Lindsay's transcript, page 1438. And did she do anything else to explain the route that she would have taken? So this is in regards to her being asked about Luke drawing the sketch. She replied, yes, he offered to draw me sketches of the route. So the claim in Innocence Betrayed seems to be that Michelle Lindsay asked Luke to draw the sketch and that this was later used in evidence against him, whereas actually he offered to draw the sketch. Innocence Betrayed, page 231. It was she who told the Mitchell family a week into the investigation that Jodi had not been sexually assaulted. DC Lindsay transcript, page 1449. On 2nd of July, when you went to the Mitchell household, you went there on the instruction of a detective inspector, is that right? She replies, that's correct, sir. Did you, when you went to Luke's house, speak to him and his mum? I did, sir. So this is the 2nd of July, this is 2 days after the murder. Did you tell them about the circumstances of the crime? I did, sir. Did you tell them, so far as you were aware, Jodi's death was the result of a knife attack? That's correct, sir. I was instructed to tell them that. But there was no evidence of a sexual assault? That's correct, sir. It does appear here that she advised this on the 2nd of July, 2 days after the murder, not a week into the investigation. This next one is something that's been said online on social media platforms, some claims that have been made in regards to the jury being aware of the charges of perverting the course of justice being dropped. So on the 14th of April 2004, Corinne and Shane were both charged with perverting the course of justice, the implication being that they'd lied to cover for Luke and his whereabouts. So a claim was made online when the transcripts were released that they had been doctored in order to make it look as if the jury weren't informed. And one of the main social media groups put up a comment which said the jury were removed from the court when the charges for perverting the course of justice were dropped against Shane and Corinne Mitchell. The jury did not know these charges were dropped. Although there's not much on this in Innocence Betrayed, this claim has been made online by the author of the book and the people running the group who work with her, so I think it is worth touching upon. I think it is quite important. On the 12th of January 2005, page 2079, we can see that in the time between the jury leaving and returning, the jury are asked to leave, Defence QC Donald Finlay makes an argument that the proceedings against Shane Mitchell for perverting the course of justice should be dropped. This is eventually agreed after some lengthy discussion. When the jury return to the courtroom, they aren't informed straight away that the charges have been dropped, but they are informed the next day on the 13th, page 2239, when Shane agrees in front of the jury that he had been told there would be no proceedings against him. The jury were present when Corinne was informed that the charges would be dropped. She is advised, these proceedings accordingly have remained outstanding since then. I have taken the position that there will be no further proceedings in relation to those matters, and I call Mrs. Mitchell as a witness. The text between Jodi and Luke. Page 36 of Innocence Betrayed. The agreed facts. Monday, June 30th, the 4:34 PM text from Judith's phone to Luke's, in brackets Jodi's phone was broken, asked did he want to meet up with Jodi later that evening. Luke texted back saying that he would be out after tea and suggested Jodi come down from her house in East Houses to meet him near his home in Newbattle. During the evidence of DC Allen Towers, the statements regarding what Luke had said was in the exchange were read out. Jodi: hi, are you coming out? Luke: you can come down to my house if you want, we'll muck about. Jodi: yeah, sure, I don't know what time I'll be leaving the house, see you whenever. Luke also mentioned Jodi's response during the August 14th, Section 14 interview. The following was read out during the testimony of Sergeant Thompson, one of the interviewing officers. Luke explains Jodi had replied, cool, do you want me to walk down? I don't know what time I'll be leaving. He also said, I replied, sure, see you when you get down. If Luke had replied, sure, see you when you get down, this would mean that there'd been 4 texts in the exchange, but we know there were only 3. That aside, it does differ to what was said in Innocence Betrayed. Even if it's just slightly. Luke doesn't mention any agreement to meet Jodi near his house, or that he would be out after tea. He just said that Jodi had said she would be down whenever. Obviously we don't know what was said in those texts, and we'll probably never have any way of finding out, but there are some variations in what was apparently said, and even between the transcripts and Innocence Betrayed. One final thing that I wanted to touch upon, which I do feel is quite important as well because it's something that's been said regularly by campaigners, is the changing of the stories by the search party or the search trio. So that was Jodi's sister, her sister's then boyfriend, and her grandmother. It is often said that the 3 members of the search trio changed their story to say that Luke knew where the body was, he just walked straight over to the wall, whereas their initial statements had said that the dog signalled at the wall. At no point in Alice Walker's transcripts did she say that Luke's dog pulled him over to the wall. When Janine, Jodi's sister, and her then partner Stephen Kelly gave their evidence, they did actually describe the dog in early statements that were read out, reacting at the wall. And they didn't deny that they'd said that in their early statements. They said if that was what I said at the time, or if that's what I remembered at the time, it must be correct. So they didn't deny it, even though by the trial they weren't saying that the dog reacted anymore. But it wasn't the 3 of them that said that. There is no evidence that Alice Walker said that and changed anything. So I do think that's important to acknowledge as well. Again, just these little details. So I just want to finish by saying again that this video isn't to try and convince anyone of the guilt of Luke Mitchell or the innocence of Luke Mitchell. It's just to analyse and compare the information that is being provided by people who are leading the campaign, specifically the book Innocence Betrayed by Dr. Sandra Lean. And I think that's important because in order to make decisions, I think people have the right to correct information. In a situation where someone is innocent, I don't believe that there is any need to omit information that might make them look bad or change information to make that person appear in a better light. And if there is facts and information being provided to members of the public, I think it's only fair that that information is as accurate as it can be. I'm also aware that in this case we have no idea what the true facts actually are. But either way, don't let anybody tell you that you're wrong for doing your own research, and if they do, maybe that's a red flag. Thank you for listening.